Ready?
All right, I'm gonna call this workshop to order. This is a workshop for the city council of the city of Holiday Island for the purpose of considering the ordinance for trash collection. So let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. It's not on the agenda, but we'll do it anyway. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, do a roll call.
Councilmember Dumas. Here. Councilmember Elwood.
Aye. Here.
Councilmember Graves.
Aye. Here.
Councilmember Mills.
Here.
Councilmember Goodman.
Here.
All present, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I don't know that I need to call a quorum because we're not gonna vote on anything, but the gang's all here.
That'd be a great song. You know the words?
All right, the purpose of the workshop is to gather information required to finalize ordinance 2022-004, establishing solid waste regulations for the city of Holiday Island. We had a lengthy discussion about this in our last city council meeting, and then we tabled the ordinance in order to conduct this workshop and gather more information and refine what it is we want to do. The items that I listed on the agenda aren't necessarily agenda items that we're going to cover in bullet order. They're things that I thought that we wanted to make sure we addressed in this workshop. So as a format for the workshop, unless someone has a better idea, I am going to just go through the proposed ordinance as it stands right now with the input that I've gotten from people so far, with the exception of a couple of things that Linda gave me, which we'll discuss when we get to them. And then we can go into a general discussion about whether or not we think we have everything addressed in a satisfactory manner. So rather than interrupting maybe and jumping back and forth as we go through it, we could go through the whole proposed regulation and then come back and address specific questions that people have, comments, input. All right, and here again, I'm not going to read the whole regulation. Everybody's had ample opportunity to read it, but on the first page, Lynn made a kind of correction to capitalize city. Not a big deal, but yes, everywhere where city is indicated in the regulation, it will be henceforth capitalized. On page 2, in the second paragraph, it said shall be payable accounting, 2 terms. That should have been according to terms. So we made that correction, highlighted that correction. In the paragraph under approved container, it said waste provider. That has been corrected to contractor. And then I added a sentence, and Lynn added to that if bag service is selected by the customer must provide their own container that does not exceed 35 gallons in volume capacity, nor 50 pounds in weight when full with a lid. So that satisfied a question that we had about just setting bags on the driveway and letting animals rip them to shreds, which, you know, as a matter of commentary, happened yesterday on our block. It was either animals or the wind, but there were garbage strewn around the yards.
Those big green containers that we get from Carroll County, those are 65-gallon, aren't they?
Under 95, I think.
The two-wheel carts.
Yeah, the big ones that we have, I think are 95. 96. 96.
I don't know, someplace on
I
the thing
think,
it said 65 something.
Maybe it is.
I think they have both.
I don't, the ones I've seen, they're all the same size that I have, and I thought it was 65.
The reason I suggested 35 gallons here is because that's basically two 15-gallon kitchen bags. So if you have the one bag service, if you have, in the contract, I think we talked about whether it was a 15-gallon bag or a 30-gallon bag when we talked about service. And he clarified it was a 30-gallon bag. So this would hold one large 30-gallon bag.
Okay, then moving on to the definition of commercial waste. We're adding, well, I'll read the whole paragraph. Commercial waste means solid waste generated by a commercial or industrial establishment or a multiple residential unit, business, or combined units of businesses, including B&Bs, VRBOs, and other forms of short-term rentals that streamline waste into consolidated containers that typically generate more than 2 cubic yards of solid waste per week. So we added the including B&Bs, VRBOs, and other forms of short-term rental. And I just noticed there's a spelling mistake in that paragraph too. In the last sentence, it should say chooses, not chooses. All right, then we added a paragraph for dumpster corral. Lynn provided a definition of sorts and a requirement of sorts. So we may want to divide that up. Linda suggested under dumpster corral, and did you get this out of our proposed zoning ordinance?
I think I did, yeah.
Yeah, or, you know, maybe a cleaner definition, sticking strictly to definition of dumpster corral would mean an opaque screening consisting of solid walls or fencing constructed of masonry, wood, or metal, which aesthetically blends into the environment while obscuring the waste dumpster from, and its contents from being seen from the frontage roadway. A dumpster corral is required when solid waste dumpster is located in any well, that even gets into the requirement then. You know, under definition, we might want to just stop at the definition and then add where one is required in the contents of the ordinance as opposed to in the definition. Okay, then no more changes until we get to page 4, section 6, containers, residential. I added a section in there that says, unless special arrangements are made, trash is to be placed at the end of the drive after 5 p.m. on the day before collection, and trash containers are to be retrieved and stored no later than 5 p.m. on collection day. Wes sort of commented to me that 5 p.m. might be a little early since people might not be home from work yet at 5 p.m. So maybe we want to change that to 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. or something.
So what would special arrangements mean if, like, if we're going to be out of town, we'll leave it at noon the day before instead of 5?
Yeah, I don't know what special arrangement. I'm not sure where I got that from, but I'm sure I got it from somebody else's ordinance.
Is it even necessary?
Yeah, because if you don't, then people are going to leave their garbage cans sit out at the end of the driveway. 365 days of the year.
I changed it to 8 then.
There's one on State Line right now that kind of lays in the ditch most of the week.
Cause, you know, you go out of town for the day, you may not be home. I hate to get whacked for something that.
Why does it have to be out the night before?
Well,
Some of us are up at 5 o'clock in the morning, that's,
Yeah, but there's some of us that, like last week,
it doesn't say it has to be out at 5, it says it can't be out, it can't,
can't be earlier than that.
yeah, it must be out after 5.
Well, then what difference does it make if we put 5 o'clock or 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock?
We're talking about bringing it in.
Oh, bringing it in,
Right.
okay, I thought you were still talking about putting it out.
Yeah.
Bringing it in, that's,
I don't know, I put mine out at night sometimes. Previous night.
well, you can do that, you can't do it before 5 p.m. the previous day.
Oh, I thought that was AM. Excuse me. I thought I had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
you do, can't
No, I'm not gonna do that.
And I don't have any problem with that, other than there are occasions, and I'm sure other people have done the same thing, of where, you're gonna go out of town on, Tuesday at noon, and not gonna be back till, late the next day. So if you put your can out, not can, but cart out at, 11 a.m. and you leave, then you're technically violating.
I don't think it can sit in your garage.
I think we're safe here because you're not gonna get a warning notice by the trash
Or you
collector.
could contact a neighbor to take care of it for you or something.
Gee, thanks, Linda, for volunteering. I have no problem with it, Linda's gonna, I need to leave early, Linda's gonna take care of that.
I think as a guideline, it's very good. I don't know that I would incite a violation for it.
not an occasional.
If somebody occasionally
I mean,
violates this,
the old
they're not gonna,
axioms.
It's a little different too, places where I live. My neighbors do say we're gonna be out and I do it for them, but there's a lot of places here that don't really have neighbors.
That's true.
I don't,
That's a
anyway,
bigger problem.
I think
Or not a close neighbor, you can't go a mile down the
But
street.
it just seems like there are ways to handle it. You can take it to Eureka and dump it yourself.
I'm not gonna do that if I'm going to Branson.
Well, I'm sorry, but I'm just saying there are ways
I don't
to
think-
handle it.
I don't think it's a big issue.
I've never lived anywhere where you could put your garbage out anytime you wanted and just let it sit there until they picked it up. I've never lived in a place like that. In most places, you can't even let your garbage can sit in the driveway by your garage. It's gotta be behind some kind of a enclosure. So I think we're being pretty lenient here.
I'd say wait and see if it becomes a problem. I think this is good.
Then section B was added in total, commercial, solid waste generated by commercial or industrial establishments or multi-residential unit, business or combined unit of businesses, including B&Bs and VRBOs, other forms of short-term rentals, must utilize a dumpster provided by the contractor. The business entity responsible for streamlining multiple sources of waste into one dumpster are responsible for maintaining with the contractor a list of active water meter locations being serviced. Overflow of the dumpster is expressly prohibited, and no other materials, paint cans, electronic, cardboard, etc., is to be placed or stored in or around the dumpster. Then section C was added in total. If a dumpster is to be kept in a residential area, it must be kept in an enclosure, dumpster corral, or otherwise out of view of passing traffic and cannot emit an offensive odor. Dumpsters must be kept closed such that rainwater is prevented from entering the dumpster. Leaking of any liquid from the dumpster to the ground is expressly prohibited. Any commercial enterprise that as part of their business streamlines solid waste from multiple locations into a dumpster must register with the city of Holiday Island. Now, this cracks the door open, and I've had some discussion with Wes about the fact that at some point, we're going to need to have operating licenses or privilege licenses in Holiday Island, not as a matter of a source of revenue. We can make the fee nominal, $5 or $10, but we do need to know who is conducting business. This is just one type of business, but we do need to know, who's doing what in the city.
And where they're doing it. And where they're doing it.
And where they're doing it. And this is gonna come up again when we get into our nuisance ordinance, because I got another complaint about somebody that has a lot here in Holiday Island, and they just recently bought the lot. They had it surveyed, and when they came back to visit their lot, somebody had dumped a bunch of yard trimmings, tree branches, and somebody cleaned up somebody's property for them and dumped all the trash on somebody else's vacant lot. So here again, we're going to want to know who the people are in Holiday Island that do that as a service, so we can talk to them about where they go and what they do with the the tree limbs and the shrubbery and everything else after they dig it up. Part D, part-time residents. Part-time residents who will not be at their residence on trash collection day can utilize a dumpster provided by the city. Trash being put into these dumpsters must contain a bag tag purchased from the city. The city will advise as to the location of the dumpsters when purchasing the bag tags. The city will maintain a record of bag tag purchases by water meter locations. I pretty much got this from Fairfield Bay. It's to deal with another type of situation that we have in Holiday Island here, where people come down from Wichita on Friday afternoon and they leave Sunday afternoon. And we don't necessarily want them hauling their trash out of Holiday Island and putting it who knows where. So, and yet, they don't want to have a trash can sitting at the end of their driveway until they come back again. Neither do we. They don't want it because it's a red flag that they're not home, that nobody's there for potential break-ins and stuff. So this is what they did in Fairfield Bay. They have 2 dumpsters, and the people, the part-time residents, can utilize those dumpsters. And Lynn already provided me with the verbiage for the sign to put on the dumpster.
They'll be chained.
How you gonna decide? You're gonna, regardless, unless but you can't put a lock on it, so I don't know.
Now,
But you're gonna get some
all we can
extraneous.
do is post a sign on it that says it's for bag tag customers only. Any other use of this is illegal dumping, subject to fines and penalties. That's about all you can do. And then,
If we can figure out how.
Darn well there's gonna be people, pitching their garbage in it, but I'd rather it be in a dumpster and try to deal with it that way than having it lay alongside the road somewhere.
And if everybody is required to have garbage service, that ought to reduce that problem.
We would hope, but I would bet money on it that you're gonna get some.
Well, the mayor of Fairfield Bay said it greatly improved. They had the exact same problem we have. And she said it greatly improved, didn't totally go away, but it greatly diminished when they put the dumpsters up.
You're not gonna get 100% no matter what we do. So.
part of this, but I think we need to look at a game camera or some kind of security camera.
That's another deterrent.
They don't cost very much.
Smile, you're on camera.
All right, the next section, I think, section E, I don't think any of the content is new, I just added the title of contractors because it dealt with contractors, basically. And in section 7,
I just noticed, because we use the word contractor to talk about the waste provider contractor, perhaps you should be more specific and say general contractors or something like that.
and we say that in the text, but not in the title. Okay. Then in the next section on burning and dumping of solid waste. This is another one that I wrestled with a lot, but I added a line in here that says, yard waste with the exception of leaves. Because I think if we prohibit the burning of all yard waste, including leaves, without providing people an alternative, it's just unmanageable.
What do I do with all the limbs I pick up from my trees?
Put them out by the road and have the street department come by and chip them.
No.
Huh?
We went through this on something else, and I disagree with it, and we allowed
We talked about a lot.
yard waste, we could burn.
I think George from Carroll County last meeting stated that the site in Eureka Springs next to the recycling center is for all of Carroll County to use.
I think you're creating a problem there. I think people left with no options will do other things. I don't own a truck. I would not be able to carry my stuff to Eureka Springs. So it would set in my yard therefore, and probably after a certain point upset the people who are surrounded by me. And I think without even an option to burn those limbs and stuff like that, that's what you're gonna end up.
Well, everybody has an option on the limbs. The Suburban Improvement District has a chipping program. You put your limbs out by the street and you give them a call, and they come by and they get
I
them.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then in-
With a caveat though, Mr. Mayor, maximum diameter 2 inches, and it has to be live material.
Yeah, that makes a big difference.
That's for the chipper.
Yeah, just recently cut down.
Yeah. Cause we have stuff in our yard that was there before my landlord purchased it. So therefore, I'm left now, you're kind of giving me no option of what to do with that, even though it's not us who did it.
Mhm.
I think we need to talk more to Carroll County Solid Waste about this issue.
They're not gonna take yard waste, period. It's not in their charter.
I don't know what this came up before, because where I
And we-
live,
and
I'm
we-
worried about people dumping it over the hill. Around the golf course, which they do.
But you need a lot of space.
You do, exactly. I think it's a big problem.
Well, I'll go back to, is there any other city, even in Carroll County, that lets you make a big brush pile in your backyard and burn it?
Well, not only that, you got people burning leaves right on the street in the right of way.
And it causes a smoke hazard.
That may be the safest place to do it.
Well, I know it is.
Are we, as long as we're talking about this openly right now, I do have another thought to add. So we have a lot of homes being built, and before they put up the structure, they go and clear the lot of trees and brush and small plantings and
This,
everything, what are they going to do?
they burn.
They're not, under this, they can't.
That's what we're saying.
Well,
So
if
we
it's,
gotta have a solution for that too.
if it's a commercial enterprise, I'd have to look back through this, but I thought at one time they had to remove it. If you have a tree service or something, they have to dispose of it.
Then it needs to be written into the ordinance.
Talk about that. Is that in the, zoning, and we talked about contractor burning, you know, it had to be so far
Yeah,
away?
That
there's
used to
another
be in
whole
this.
section, there's another whole section in the nuisance
Burning
abatement,
that we didn't put in here, right?
yeah, that's,
That's
you
where
know,
we saw it.
there's a way of kicking the can down the road here, and that's just not deal with yard waste, because this is supposed to be the solid waste, the trash ordinance, not the yard waste ordinance. The issue about burning, the issue started out a discussion about burning your garbage. And then it expanded to any kind of burning in your yard.
Well,
Maybe we should deal with the burning of yard waste and stuff when we get to the nuisance.
Well, then
Abatement
maybe reword
ordinance.
this so that it
We
doesn't.
just take that section
Just
out.
take that section out.
and there was a thing about, you know, you have to call the fire department and tell them you're.
That was in that burning ordinance.
That was in the nuisance abatement ordinance.
Okay, I knew we'd gone through this once before, we decided it was okay, and now we're saying it isn't.
No,
I don't think we ever decided.
what we're saying here is you can't put it on the street
I understand that.
for the solid waste people.
We're talking about
Solid
solid
waste,
waste, we
we
take
just
the word
deal with
yard
that.
waste out of this.
Yeah, I'm just gonna take out including yard waste with the exceptional use. We'll just take that out of the solid waste ordinance and treat that, we'll revisit it when we get to the nuisance abatement ordinance that has a whole section in there about burning.
I hope we can figure out some solution.
It's another issue.
Okay, then dropping down to section 9. I scratched, the bylaw and inserted these regulations, or actually technically amended. Just as using the proper terminology. And then going on to page 6. In A, under residential customers, the sentence, apartment complexes and other multifamily housing units consisting of more than 4, as opposed to or more, 4 or more. So we added more than and scratched or more. That's just a
Is that,
clarification.
This to allow a fourplex, where what was there before, you, a fourplex would not be eligible.
but, you know, we've got places that have more than 4 units in them.
Then they're not eligible. As
What do they do?
residential
As
customers.
a residential customer, they're a commercial customer.
Okay. You know, like you got that apartment building over there right now.
And I think this also had to do with how the
I don't know
contract
how
with
they-
Carroll County was worded too, didn't it?
Could be.
Yes.
To make it consistent.
Okay, then, that was all of the additions or corrections, so. Now,
Well, we need to go back to the dumpster corral.
Let's see, I'd have to look at it under 1D, the word collected,
what page?
down in the third line from the last one, that doesn't read right.
Where are you?
What page are you on?
6, under 12A, 1D.
What part doesn't read right?
Item D.
Item D,
All items must be separated and placed as instructed.
go down third line from the bottom, from the last.
Waste are prohibited.
We are prohibited from collected and must be disposed of. What's that word supposed to be?
From being collected.
Let's see, all items must be separated and solid waste as instructed.
Yeah, from being collected.
Must be from collection.
Should solid
From
waste
collection.
next be also waste and service shall be extended. Including solid waste. From being collected.
Probably.
Yeah, I think so.
And must be disposed of by the owner or responsible party in an approved manner. Yeah, that reads better.
Just insert B.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it reads okay if you just, insert that. It just means that there are certain things that Carroll County don't take, and if they are prohibited from being collected, then the responsible party has to dispose of them. Okay, going back to dumpster corral definition.
Oh, before we get there, I had an item on page 1.
Okay.
This is real minor. It's in the last paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th line. Property is in the name of any person, business, or
The
other.
fact that legal title property is in,
I think you want to insert the name of.
any person, business, or other entity. Yep. Reads much better. All right.
Also, in section 1, the first paragraph there on that same page, about midway down, you talk about the collection of solid waste by anyone other than the approved contractor or contractors. Are you referring to subcontractors there, or are you opening the door for multiple contractors?
There's a section in here that says that if the city needs to dispose of, or it might be in the other contract, in the Carroll County Solid Waste contract, that says that if the city has to get rid of something that they don't take, then we are allowed to use other contractors.
Oh, okay, okay.
So in that regard, do we need to put the word approved in front of
Other
contractors
contractors.
or approved contractors, just to be clear?
Or other contractors as provided for in the contract with them. It's not good.
Yeah. The only thing, I have a question, Dan, is,
The contract didn't allow us,
Well, it does say approved contractor or contractors, so.
that's fine.
and I don't know, maybe it doesn't have to be spelled out in here, is how the notification of the contractor, who the customers are possible that they're gonna be responsible for it, or is that just gonna be in the contract with Taylor County?
Start over again, say it again.
As a clarification, I mean, I see this ordinance as mostly to let the people, the residents of Holiday Island know how this is gonna work. But we didn't talk about the process of how Carroll County Solid Waste is going to be made aware of who are the responsible customers for them. Like the district's gonna, or do we not need to just have that in the contract?
Yeah, I don't think that needs to necessarily be in the regulation.
Okay.
And Linda put together a transition plan, and I've subsequently nominated her to be responsible for the transition.
I'll teach you.
But, I mean, there's a ton of details in here, you know, and, you know, we don't wanna have too much in the ordinance, because then it takes away any flexibility for us to change how we might wanna do it between us
I
and
think
Cal
by
County.
the ordinance saying that all water meters must be covered somehow,
Mhm.
that says it all.
And by the way, you know, for the public record, that's not a definition that I just pulled out of my own brain, that all water meter customers are assumed to generate trash. I got that from Carroll County Solid Waste. And I would imagine that if you look into the volumes of regulations, the state environmental regulations, you'd probably find some
That's
similar
probably
wording.
why so many cities put it on the water bill,
Mhm.
because that's the easiest way to identify rates.
In my research, I didn't find it. I spent 3 hours today looking for it, specifically the word water and meter and records. Those cities have municipal water systems, and they have the water system. The city of Holiday Island doesn't have a municipal water system.
There's a lot of cities that don't have.
But neither does
municipal water
Cherokee
systems.
Village.
Okay.
Cherokee Village has a private contractor.
So, I mean,
It's logical, but our situation's a little bit unique.
Well,
We're
and
not a green forest where they collect it on their receipts and they pay for it to somebody.
it does make sense, because the city boundary overlays the high city boundary, so it makes perfect sense.
We're not agreeing or disagreeing with the logic, it's just, I don't know about the method yet.
okay. Are we back to the
I have
paragraph
a
on
comment at the top of page 2.
top of page 2?
Yeah, in the that second paragraph there, it says about the franchise fee, which shall be set not to exceed 4% of the rate charged. I think you need a comma after the word charged, so it separates it from the next phrase, which says for the privilege of doing business in the city. Because otherwise you might think that the rate charged by CCSW to its customers was for the privilege of doing business. Anyway, it suggests that you could only have a franchise fee if it was exclusive. The whole paragraph does. So, anyway, when I read it, it
I
looked to
think
me
we're
like
gonna
you
do it
needed
anyway,
a
so
comma
that's
after
it.
the word charged.
That's fine with me. I usually put comments in when Word grammar check tells me to put a comment in, and then I give it to you, and you add the 25% more commas.
Okay.
All right, what else?
Under approved container, do you need to add that a dumpster is one of the approved containers? Or is also considered an approved container?
I think dumpster would be
It's
a
not listed in
totally
the
separate
approved
item.
containers.
If you're gonna do something like dumpsters, I'd say it's.
But they are provided to commercial customers.
They ain't got wheels.
Well, no, but we don't use it. That's just the definition, but we don't use it within the text. Except,
I would say if you want,
You
With
could
the
say
definition
at
of
the
it, you
end,
say it's a separate.
And add a sentence at the
add a
end.
sentence for commercial customers, a dumpster is an approved container.
No, it has to be.
Provided by the contractor is an approved container.
I would say if you're gonna do something, add a separate item for dumpsters.
Well, that will, I did suggest adding that too.
Because we do
It's
refer
not
to,
mine.
we make reference to dumpsters several places in here.
Now, the reason this definition is in here is because somewhere in the contents of the ordinance, the term approved container is used. So, if in the context of the ordinance, dumpster isn't used in connection with the term approved container, then it wouldn't belong in
Well,
the definition.
it is used under containers, section A, residential.
And it's in section 15 for recycling.
The word dumpster is used under commercial.
In conjunction with the term approved container?
No,
So approved container isn't relating to the dumpster anywhere.
Right. So we don't wanna put dumpster in the definition of approved container
okay,
if that term isn't used to mean dumpsters anyplace in the ordinance.
I can accept that.
Next.
I'm happy.
Lynn has been wanting to talk about dumpster corral.
No, I haven't. I think it's suggested by Linda to change it.
Okay.
Kind of went over modifying what's here.
Yeah, I'm gonna shorten this up to just be the definition of dumpster corral and not where they're required. Because, dumpster corral may come up in the zoning ordinance when we start talking about what's required in different areas and stuff like that. You know, we've talked about things like having, hedgerows or, vegetation screening certain things and certain things being fenced and so
And I just,
where
Gave you a-
dumpster corral,
yeah, I just gave you a very simple definition of dumpster.
Yeah. I'm gonna substitute a simple definition of dumpster corral.
So that's the first line here, just that. Let's say this one is pretty close to the right.
It was, but you didn't have one.
That's because I copied it from 2 different
For
cities.
some reason, oak paint didn't look right to me, I guess it is. Pretty well spelled, I guess.
Okay, if that's all of the edits,
No,
oh,
we're not.
okay.
Yeah, just for my clarification, Dan, where did we leave the definition then?
I was going to use Linda's definition here that says dumpster corral means opaque screening consisting of solid walls or fencing constructed of masonry, wood or metal, and aesthetically blends into the environment while obscuring the waste dumpster and its contents from being seen from the frontage roadway.
And are you gonna add the word dumpster as a definition too?
Guess we could add the definition of dumpster. Okay,
On franchise fee definition, the last line, says, for the collection of residential solid waste or by the collection of commercial solid waste. I think it should say, for the collection of residential solid waste and commercial solid waste.
Where are you now?
The last sentence under franchise fee.
Under the
Definitions
definition
on
of
page
franchise
3.
fee.
Page 3, definitions.
Yeah.
Last sentence. That last sentence is kind of awkward.
Well, there's only one sentence under the definition of franchise fee.
No, it's 4 lines.
You mean the last line?
Last line.
Residential solid waste. Let's see, gotta read the whole sentence. Means up to 4% of the total collected receipts from the collection of residential or commercial waste in the city, which is payable to the city, is provided by the agreement between the contractor and the city for the collection of residential solid waste or by the collection.
Why not say residential solid waste and commercial solid waste?
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Somebody get his dollar.
Nuisance ordinance.
Okay, I got it.
Under non-recyclable materials, the last, next to last line, it says, plastic containers with symbols number 3 through number 7, and such items as indicated from time to time as recyclable materials. It should be non-recyclable materials, I believe.
What page are you on again?
Again, same page.
Page 3,
Page 3.
non-recyclable materials.
Can you give the section, because I've only got 3 pages.
The section is definitions.
Mm-hmm.
Section 2, definitions.
I think it's it's non-recyclable material.
And such items are indicated from time is. I just want to make sure that that's what they meant.
I think so, because you listed stuff that's non, yeah, I think you're right.
I mean, it's kind of a strange way to define non-recyclable.
Well, it'd be the stuff other than the plastics. If someone comes along and says, I know car batteries are on the list, but it'd say motorcycle batteries.
Okay.
Okay. Under solid waste, down a little further on the page, it means all kinds of ugly materials, but excluding, in the next to last line, but excluding yard waste, extraordinary materials, hazardous materials, and special materials, but special materials are not defined anywhere. I would take that out, since there is no definition.
I actually agree with you on that.
Thank you.
Other than mostly plastic bags, plastic containers.
Well, it says it's defined herein. So
Yeah, and it says defined.
we didn't define it, so.
It's not defined.
But the applicable federal and state laws could define it.
I think excluding yard extraordinary hazardous materials is sufficient.
I know that, I don't think we address it in the ordinance, but in their contract, they address medical waste. I don't know if that's what they're thinking in when they talk about special materials.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
Usually
it needs
has,
to be more specific then.
it would be included in hazardous material.
Can that remain there even though we don't have a list? So someday we have a list?
Well,
I mean, is there,
well, actually, hazardous does include pathological and radiological. I don't know if that would be medical.
No, we can take it out of the ordinance, because, Carroll County Solid Waste will
They'll
tell
kick
you
it out.
what you can dispose of and what you can't.
I think leaving it in just causes.
I was gonna ask you what that one word means, but I can't pronounce it, so I ain't gonna ask.
putrescible?
Or else move it to after as defined herein.
What now?
Just move it to move it to afterwards as defined herein, since we're not defining it.
But if you don't define it, who's gonna know what it means?
Well,
It's
that's
very
as I
vague.
see it. And the problem is, we don't know what it is.
So why should it be in the ordinance if we don't have a clue what it is?
If it's not in the ordinance, are you prohibited from saying this refers to anything that's not listed? I mean, that it doesn't, that you're restricted to limiting it to only these specific items.
Well, the other thing,
No, but excluding blah, 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 those have to be specific things that are excluded, because
Right.
everything else is not limited to garbage, rubbish, etc. So the exclusions have to be specific.
defined by Carroll County Solid Waste.
Yeah,
That would be your definition.
that statement is problematic in that, you know, if that's the only thing that we're excluding, because that's the entirety of our short list. When in actuality, the list of things that are excluded would probably fill 2 pages. So,
Well, I mean, certain things they don't list specifically here, like tires, batteries, motor parts,
But Carroll
free
County,
non-containing.
Carroll County Solid Waste.
But they
does.
fall into a category that's listed in here.
What's wrong with what Ken just said about just saying that as defined by, or is listed by Carroll County Solid Waste?
You gotta give it a definition.
And Carroll County Solid Waste is the only legal place we have to dispose of trash in Carroll County, right? What if our contract in the future was in Missouri? Where does he take his trash? Are we required to dump it in Arkansas?
no, one of the carriers now, I think, Republic, holds it to Springfield or someplace.
So.
But they have to report to Carroll County Solid Waste.
Okay.
Or
As listed by the provider,
by the
I was gonna say,
contractor.
by the solid waste facility, rather than naming Carroll County.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to avoid.
Yeah,
leaving.
no, that's a good point.
Here's a way to do it. And instead of special materials and other items as defined herein or specified by the contractor, the solid waste contractor, provider, whatever, something like that.
I'm just gonna say as defined by the contractor.
That's cut, I mean, they can tell you what they're not gonna pick
think you would want to be more specific and say the solid waste provider.
Well, contractor is defined as,
Contractor.
Contractor's already defined.
Because we're the providers, the contractor's gonna be.
So the solid waste contract.
Okay, are you good with that, Dan?
Mhm.
Okay. We have under section 3, further down on the page, residential solid waste fees. It doesn't mention commercial solid waste fees. Do the two schedules that they gave us cover commercial?
Yeah, it had, different yard dumpsters on it.
Mhm.
Oh, that's right, one page was that, wasn't it? So,
That contract.
so you should, I think maybe you ought to say not only the residential, but maybe either add a section for commercial or just say solid waste fees, I don't know. But it sounds like you're ruling out commercial by not having it in there.
Under the definition, section 3.
Section 3, right under the definitions, that's section 3.
Sure, just insert fine waste and commercial solid waste collection.
Or just say solid waste fees, just, don't specify if it's
Right.
residential or commercial.
There you go.
That's the way to do it,
There you go.
easiest way, yeah.
Just taking out the word
Or
rate.
residential.
Take the word residential out. Okay.
You need to take residential out of the,
Out of section 3,
yeah, out of the,
and out of the heading as well, then, right?
yeah.
Up under, after non-recyclable materials, means should be plural, shouldn't it?
Where are you looking?
Back in the definition we were on before.
Under section 2, non-recyclable materials.
Got it?
Oh, okay.
All right, moving on. Are we done?
Still have a few more comments on pages here. It occurred to me under B on section 6 containers, or with the new language you added, about how to handle the short-term rentals and stuff. It says, the line 4 says, must utilize a dumpster provided by the contractor, which I totally get and agree with. I'm just thinking about, let's say the managing entity for these short-term rentals out here was Eureka Springs business. And they handled this short terms in Eureka Springs and out here, like they service and clean and whatnot.
Mhm.
But your business is in town, perhaps they live in Eureka, stuff like that. But you're asking them to utilize a dumpster out here. Where are they gonna put that dumpster?
I guess it's up to them to find a place for it that's,
So what's logical?
if they don't have a place for one, then
So what I'm getting at is Carroll
I can
County
answer
Solid
your
Waste.
question.
Can I finish?
Yeah, but I can answer that question.
I
Please
appreciate
finish.
it, and I know you know the
Okay.
answer. But you see, the dumpster, if they're in Eureka Springs, they would want to use a dumpster in Eureka Springs. But Carroll County Solid Waste would be picking it up with their crew in Eureka Springs, not Holiday Island. I don't know how they would handle that bill. And get our water meters associated with a single billing. Now, maybe he wants to offer some more thoughts on that now.
The company you're talking about does gather their trash here and dump it in a dumpster in Eureka. Well, where my company's gonna do is turn in a list of all water meters that we manage. We're gonna suggest that to them, to turn it into, that way they know which ones are being serviced by that dumpster. That makes sense?
Would they have a separate dumpster then?
He's got his own dumpster there in Eureka. The company, it's the same company I think you're talking about.
Yeah.
He's got his own dumpster in there in Eureka, so he would have to turn in a list to Carroll County Waste.
So you would take all the trash from here up there yourself?
He would take, I'm not with that company.
He's doing it, okay.
His cleaning crew would have to take all the trash to his dumpster, and he would have to turn in a list to Carroll County Waste.
Is he managing property in Eureka?
He does have properties in Eureka.
Then he ought to have a dumpster here and one there.
I agree with that too.
Well, I was gonna say, doesn't that constitute a trash collector?
That's exactly where I was
Hauling
going.
outside our city limits,
We,
to be disposed of in some other place?
yeah, we don't, you know, we wanna limit people, we wanna limit the number of people that haul trash, so that we can control it, regulate it, know what's going on. If we allow people to, you know, collect trash bags from 15 rental properties in Holiday Island, throw it in the back of their pickup truck, and take it to Eureka Springs, what's the difference between that and Ace putting it in the back of their truck and taking it to Carroll County Solid Waste? I'd rather have Ace taking it to Carroll County Solid Waste, at least we know what the end, you know, the end point is for it.
So I have two rentals that I manage that are my personal, and when I clean them, I take my trash and I take it to my residence because I do have a dumpster at my residence in Washington County.
In Washington.
So, but I'm here cleaning, so that's not an extra.
And I point this out because I think this is definitely happening, and you all just proved it, so.
Yes.
And we gotta figure out how to handle it.
You know, I might have 2 or 3 bags. I have, trash cans in the back of my property. They're not out front, so nobody sees them. And when I finish cleaning, I take them, and this wasn't at my property.
Our dilemma is, how do we deal with, how do you allow a perfectly legitimate activity like that without cracking the door open for people to just say, screw you, I'm gonna do whatever I want? How are we gonna know who's properly disposing of trash and who isn't? That's our dilemma as a
First
city.
of all, we would know it was a short-term rental. Identify it by a particular water meter. That's one way to control it. So it can't be just a resident that lives here.
The dumpster in Eureka would be to the same contractor. That dumpster would also be a Carroll County Solid Waste.
It would.
Not if you're taking it to Washington County though.
Who's he said it was?
The lady in the audience.
Well, I thought he said it was Eureka.
Well,
No, the lady said she has 2 properties here. She takes it to her residence in Washington.
Well, that's no different than a bunch of people get
keeps
together.
it here. Yeah. Did you hear what Bart said? He says, why not have them use a bag tag? And
Bag
put it
service.
Put it in a dumpster here. It'd be easier on you anyway. to get
Yeah,
it
but
that way.
I would think that would exceed the limit, of my bag tag. I'm paying for it at my house anyways.
No, that's true. You say if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I mean, did anybody know I was doing this? It's not like it's being a problem.
The problem is, it is broke, and laws aren't for the law abiding. Laws are to deal with people like number one Dogwood up here, who is
That's why we're all here.
darn close to a Superfund site, and we're,
And yeah,
it's very, very difficult to deal with it.
I understand that, so could we, like he said, like, provide like a list of my water meters, mine too? And just have like,
But you can buy bags and water meters.
Well, you would fall into that category in the way we identified handling short-term rentals, so. Wouldn't you? Yeah. Even though she's a private cleaner that only handles a couple of places out here.
She's,
Those two
streamlining,
places would be grouped together.
the technical term is streamlining trash. And, so,
You wouldn't wanna do that with somebody that does, a dozen properties or whatever, would you?
I think
That's the problem.
It was proposed. So those properties have to be cleaned by somebody, and the more we get out here, the more we're gonna have multiple properties being cleaned by one outfit.
Okay,
That's
but
gonna be
then,
the way
then
it
they're
goes.
required to put a dumpster somewhere on one of those properties.
Yeah, but the problem, yeah, you think one of those properties gonna want a dumpster sitting there? No. No way.
I wouldn't have a place to put one, that a truck could pick it up. Mine are just right across the street. So,
That's why I think a central dumpster here in Holiday Island with a bag pack would work for you.
But then
Well,
she has
that's-
to pay twice.
that's kind of what I
Well,
was thinking.
she's not paying for trash at her place.
Yes, she is.
It's not, but it's not being collected at her place, so why would she be paying for it there?
No, it is being collected.
It is.
He's taking it from
She's
here.
taking it
I'm
home.
saying she can't do it anymore though.
Oh, okay, well then,
I would say she leaves it here.
Yeah.
And then she doesn't have to deal with it. She doesn't have to pay for it at home. She doesn't have to deal with it at home. She doesn't have to carry it in a truck.
Well, she's already paying it home, I think is the,
that's the.
Well, she may
That's
be
that.
paying for her other stuff there, but she wouldn't be paying for these.
that's why I wouldn't have to pay for my trash here.
Yeah.
Well, the people doing the short-term rentals would have to buy or you would deduct it from your fee, or you would add more into your fee for them. The bags are only gonna cost $1.50, probably.
I know, but then you're asking them to put it in their car and
No, you would take it to the dumpster,
Yeah.
that'd be part of your service.
We're already making provisions for having a couple of dumpsters here in Holiday Island where the weekenders can
Yeah.
use a bag tag service. I don't really see a problem with, somebody like you, as long as it's limited. We would probably want to limit it to X number of bags a week or something like that, but.
And it would probably be located close to where your rentals are too. It'd be over here where this dumpster is, or behind the ISID building, or something like that, wouldn't it, Dan?
Well, we have to talk to ISID about that.
Well, it'd
But
have
we
to be on
don't,
some public
we, the
property.
city, doesn't own any property, so,
It'd have to be on some public property.
any public property, it's gonna have to be, we're gonna have to have the permission of the district to place a dumpster. But, they're very nice people at the district, so.
Mr. Mayor, could I make a comment about recyclables? Carroll County Solid Waste has really limited the type of things that you can put in a green little rectangular box. I was 7 weeks in Austin, and they had a blue container, like the big green ones, and they had pictures on the top of that of what you could put in it. Bottles, glass, paper, whatever. And then when you fill that up, you put it out on Monday and you take it away. Carroll County, if you bring over the fellow that's there, he's got bib overalls, he lives here in Holiday Island, nice guy. He will be picking out stuff. Greenwood containers, no. Cool Whip containers, no. Strawberry container, it has to have a circle, like a bottle, okay? Mazzola bottle, pop bottle, beer bottle, and that's what they take over there. They do not take a lot of stuff that other cities take. So you've been having a discussion of what you're gonna have, the little triangles, you know? They don't take all the little triangles on the bottom stuff. And when you bring it over there, they have to cut it out.
They take ones and.
Ones and twos.
What he's saying is there are containers made of 1 and 2 plastics that don't have lids on them, and they reject those.
You can put in what you want in your
You say they're
regulations,
sorting
but
it at the recycling center, they're rejecting it and recycling it.
Oh, well,
Or you just throw it in your regular trash.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
the trash is
They're
taken,
gonna landfill it.
But I think, isn't it true they allow us to put 1 and 2 plastics in our recycle bin?
I think so.
So they're taking responsibility to sort it out at their facility.
Yeah, the big problem, according to the fellow over there, and he was here last week, or two, the director, is that they can't sell
Right.
it. They cannot sell it, so why collect it? And then it's gonna go in landfill, which is sad.
Problem is you can't stop people from putting everything in their recycle.
Right.
Container, just like they don't want cardboard, like cereal boxes,
Right.
because it's all glue.
Yep.
And it's worth nothing for recycling, they only want corrugated cardboard, but that doesn't stop people from loading up the dumpster across the street here with cereal boxes.
Right.
So, yes,
Not to be pushing you along here, but some people gotta get back to work, and that we came here for one main reason, and that is discuss dogwood one. And I know you guys haven't gotten this far, and I don't know what you suggest to me at this level, but besides just the trash, we have 3 wild dogs that run that street all day long, while they leave them outside and go wherever they go, because it's not work. And yesterday I went out to get my mail, and actually 2 of them were at my heels, and the Great Dane was growling behind me all the way to my house, all the way up my garage. Yeah, yeah. You know, these are things that are gonna, I just wanna know how I'm supposed to handle that. Is that a city deal? Is that a police deal? Yeah, I mean,
the city does not have, and we're getting off topic here, but
I'm sorry, but
I'll answer you real quick. The city does not have an animal control ordinance yet. The county has a vicious dog ordinance, but they don't have a leash law ordinance or anything. So if it's a vicious dog, call the sheriff's department,
okay.
and
My concern
they
is
may or
that-
may not come out and do something about it.
My concern is that once dogs start running in packs, they become more dangerous.
They do.
Mhm.
Not one of those dogs alone probably wouldn't be an issue, but they get braver.
And
And they are roaming, not only they're roaming.
they roam my
neighborhood.
front porch, they come right up on my front
Yeah,
porch.
I live at 1 Larkspur Lane, and I have the rental that these ladies rent, that's next to this.
I understand it's a problem, it's not just a problem in your neighborhood, there's half a dozen neighborhoods that have.
No, but the trash
problems
is, and with these high winds, it is terrible.
We'll have a different workshop on that. Relative to that property and cleaning up that property, there is progress being made. It's slow, painfully slow, but the actual owner of the property, we have now made physical contact, voice contact with the owner of the property. And, she's aware of the problem.
Is she evicting them by any chance?
She is, I don't know how much I'm at liberty to say, but it's my understanding that she's gonna try to get them evicted.
Yeah, well, I mean, I appreciate everything that you are trying to do with the ordinances and cleaning up Holiday Island and keeping it clean and having an organized way to do all of these things. It's just how do you deal with a situation like this? This is becoming a health hazard for the whole surrounding area. You know, it has gotten that bad, and, so it's not a matter of my neighbor not bringing in the trash that he actually empties, you know?
It's actually become quite the Facebook topic.
Yeah, it might annoy me if there's an empty trash can out there for 2 or 3 days, but when you've got a dump site that you have to view and the smell, it's.
Yeah, we're well aware of it, and
I know you
We're
are.
actively working on it.
I'm glad to hear that you're working on
I
it.
hope.
I just know when we were here last time, they were given 2 days prior to the meeting, a 30-day notice, but we're way over 30 days.
Yeah.
And I wanna know where that line stops.
Well, there's been police presence there, there's been arrest at the property, there's obviously something, there's not good going on there. You know, I know it takes time for law enforcement to do what they need to do and for.
They're working with the property owner, and so far she's indicated that she's going to deal with it, so we need to give her a little time. You can't just snap your fingers and evict somebody, especially if they have kids, so it's gonna take some time.
Hey, Dan, didn't you tell me at one point that, because Carroll County Solid Waste has this special authority that they can cite
That's who's working on it.
abusers? Yeah, they
That's
are
who's
working on it,
it.
but they also have the ability to not only hold the tenant responsible, but they can hold the owner
Well,
responsible.
it is the owner, ultimately it's the owner that gets
It's the
cited.
owner, so you have some pressure that you can apply to the owner to forcibly evict these people.
$25,000 fine.
Yeah, that's pretty,
That's motivation.
that's motivation.
Hopefully, if we ever get this ordinance passed, these things won't get started.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
That's the whole
Now,
idea of
State of Arkansas.
getting this
I have
done.
one more question.
Is it about trash?
No, I'm just curious, as you guys are going over all these different subjects and the way things are gonna be handled. Now, will there be chosen people to patrol this, to constantly watch these things that aren't being followed through with by the people of Holiday Island?
We are looking for a code enforcement officer right now.
Okay,
I'm
that was
collecting
the question.
job applications as we speak,
okay.
and I have a couple of people that actually want the job.
Well, I know where I'd start.
All right,
Okay, ladies.
Thank you very much.
So what did we decide on,
well, I think,
buy the bags?
yeah, I think for the people that maintain a few properties, we're gonna have to put some kind of a limit on it. You know, we can't have somebody in here, taking care of
Use a dumpster.
20 or 30 properties and use the bag tag dumpster, they fill it up all by themselves every week, so. We'll have to put some kind of brackets around, who can use the bag tag service. But I think that's probably the best solution to the problem. It doesn't allow you to kind of do the people a service by, I don't know, getting them free garbage disposal because you take it back to your house and get rid of it. But, it allows us to, comply with the environmental regulations, with our fiduciary responsibility to control the trash. One thing you have to understand, any business person in here that streamlines trash, what they have to understand is, just because you grab that bag of trash and take it off somewhere, doesn't mean that the city is no longer responsible for it. The city takes title to that trash. If we provide you with a bag with a tag on it, and you fill that bag with trash, the city takes title to that trash. And we never give that up. Not because we don't want to give it up, we're not allowed to give it up. Meaning we're responsible for that trash forevermore. So if there's, 2 pounds of uranium, highly radioactive, something or other in it, and it ends up in a landfill somewhere, and they know that it came out of Holiday Island, they're not gonna come after you, they're gonna come after the city. So that's why we are intent on having control over where the garbage goes. It's not just a matter of making sure that everybody disposes of their trash properly, it's a matter of keeping the city out of trouble.
I have in the same paragraph B, I have, a change to line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At the end of that line is the word are, A-R-E, should be is.
Streamlining multiple sources of waste into one dumpster.
It's the business
The
entity
business
is.
Should be is.
And down in the next to last line, after the parentheses, et cetera, parentheses, that should be an R.
Well, see, I had the right number of is's and r's in there. Okay? Moving on.
Yeah, under C, that last paragraph, I don't know if you want to add this or not, but I suggest it, where you say, any commercial enterprise, doing multiple locations into a dumpster must register with the city of Holiday Island. I would suggest, comma, identifying the locations of the water meters and dumpsters.
I think we say that someplace else in here, but
Well, that's for part-time residents. It's not under the streamlining, but it is in paragraph B.
okay.
They got a contract with the contractor to get the dumpster, so the contractor's gonna know where it is.
But the city may not, and you're asking them to register with the city. So I guess the city has a reason, needs a reason to know the businesses that are streamlining.
Yes. Eventually, we're gonna have to, help Carroll County Solid Waste create a database that says, these are the customers that you need to bill directly. These are the customers that are paying for the service through streamlining or whatever, bank service.
That's all I have.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, I'm gonna save this one final time, so I'm gonna in here. Then, now, do we feel like we have all of the types of situations covered? I mean, we can always add to the ordinance.
Right.
Eventually, if something comes up that we haven't considered.
I think we need,
I think this is a good start.
I think this is what we need to go forward with, and I think we ought to try and.
Bob?
I was gonna keep my mouth shut.
That's unusual.
This ordinance, has aroused a lot of interest in the community, and I hope you all are getting as many phone calls as I have, and I'm not even involved. But one of the things that, really has, I guess, struck me, we have a lot of widows and widowers in our community that don't necessarily generate a tremendous amount of trash, not enough to fill even a bag every week in the bottom of that big container. I didn't realize they're doing this, and you can check on it, but a lot of these men and women that generate such a small amount of trash, when they make their bi-weekly trip to Walmart, they go over to Carroll County Solid Waste and drop their bag for $3. That's what they're doing, and I guess I see no problem with that. Your ordinance could be expanded just a little bit, this bag and tag program. I could see that being an easier way for these people to do what they're doing, where they would have the ability to buy a tag and make their bi-weekly garbage deposit here at Holiday Island, not have to haul it over to Berryville. It's
That's
just-
one of the ways that Berryville City, the city of Berryville handles those situations
Oh, is it?
right now. And I see that as possibly part of our negotiating prices.
Yeah.
They already, you know, Carroll County Solid Waste already has a senior fee for $9.71 a month, but we haven't got a real firm on that, so. And that's would be a box for recycled and one bag every week, which is cheaper than driving to Berryville and paying $3.
Well, who wants to drive into the dump anyway, if you don't have to, I mean,
I mean, that's not a pleasant place to go, as far as I'm concerned.
the guys that work there are very nice though.
Oh, yeah.
Don't believe everything we read.
There is, in the fee structure, there is a single 15-gallon a week fee. And it's $10, $9 and something a month.
$9.70
So,
or something.
I think that's pretty reasonable. I think we should have people covered there.
Yeah.
It's not $3, but
Well, if you go, there's 4 weeks in a month, so if you go $3 a bag, it's $12. Plus they'll go every week maybe, but.
No, they don't.
the,
Me, I put one bag out a month.
We put one out every 2 weeks, but I'm for convenience, hell, at my age, I don't know.
yeah,
But I see all that as part of our negotiation.
yeah. And, yeah, and if we allow for people to be able to take their own garbage over to Berryville, then
We're right back where we started.
yeah, we're kind of right back where we started.
And we wasted
Better
all
off
the time.
negotiating low prices.
Because,
The gas prices are gonna help us with that, you can't drive up there and back for
This is 20-year or 30-year-old problem, it isn't one that we.
I'll say again, like I started out before, that these ordinances are not for the law abiding, they're for the law breakers. So for every, dozen people that do take their trash all the way to the landfill in Berryville, there's probably one that pitches it out the window on the way to Eureka Springs. I drove into Eureka Springs this morning, it's horrible. The road, Highway 23 between here and Eureka Springs
looks like a dump.
it's a trash dump in itself, it's horrible.
So it's 187.
Yeah.
And that's with high twice a year cleaning it up.
And
It's
then,
probably 1 or 2 people doing it.
as far as do we have
I
all
don't know
the
what kind of
cases
beer they drink.
considered? I haven't gone through the list, but I did make a pretty comprehensive list of use cases, last night. I'll pass that on to you. You may want to just think through each one of these use cases and see how it fits into this ordinance. But I'm pretty confident we've got everything.
I think,
Okay.
I don't think anything we do initially is gonna be 100%. I think we're gonna I think we've made a really good effort to cover the majority of them, and I think we need to get on with it and work from there to make it better.
Okay.
We're gonna get something started.
All right, so why don't we move on to the contract with Carroll County now? Just from a kind of a procedural standpoint, the contract with Carroll County isn't necessarily, shackled to the ordinance. We can pass the ordinance anytime we want, and then come up with a final draft of the contract with Carroll County, and then the city council will have to approve that contract, because by law, the council has to approve all contracts. So, it's 2:30. I'll give people the option. Do you want to go through the contract, or do you want to let me come up with something close to a final draft, and including rate structures and stuff like that with Carroll County, and then run it by Justin and make sure that he puts his, legal imprimatur on it. And then we can either have another workshop, to consider the contract, or,
Question.
because Wes has got to get to, Carroll County Electric before they close this afternoon.
You're gonna turn your lights off, Wes?
We're trying to get lights turned
Trying
on.
to get lights for the sheriff. Dan's already been there once today.
I don't mind waiting.
You would swear that we're trying to sell them something as opposed to trying to buy something from them.
We had that original contract that they gave us, you've rewritten that.
I made some edits to that and circulated it to you guys. You guys
Not
remember
since,
seeing
not
that?
since the last meeting.
Not since,
Not since
I don't have it.
I haven't seen it.
We have not seen your most recent edits.
Alright,
So that's what I was about to say.
best kept secret.
I've got the sheriff's contract, I don't have the other
Yeah,
one.
we just need to see it, sure.
You gave us a copy of rates,
Well, that's
and I can't make, I can't equate that to what they're charging now. I wanna see a rate structure, what they're charging now and what they want, what they're gonna change it to. Because I can't figure out, I know what I'm paying now, but I can't pick out what I got. I don't know if I got a 65-gallon bucket or a 95-gallon
You're
bucket.
paying $29 with tax, you're paying the 95-gallon rate.
I'm paying $24.89.
You're probably, you are. With their most recent 5% increase?
That would be the 65-gallon.
Well, that's what I was asking, are they 65-gallon?
They do offer
65 gallon
gallons.
with tax.
Well, everybody's that I see is the same size, and that's what I got. So I think the one that, anyway, I wanna see a current rate and what they're gonna give us since we're going exclusive, and I want a reduction from, I wanna see it go down.
To answer your question, Dan, I would prefer that we not do it now, that you get do what you need to do on it, and then please get it to us a couple, 3 days before to consider it. Because the last time, we got a couple of things that afternoon, and we ended up having a table.
The other thing is, when do you wanna try and approve this ordinance? Do you want to?
I was thinking about calling a special meeting to do it.
So we already called one for Friday, can we run that through Friday?
We'd have to have another special meeting.
Before you approve it, I think we need to talk about the effective date that's in it. Because the effective date suggests that people are mandated to start having their trash done by that date,
No.
or they're gonna be fined.
We've gotta have 3 readings.
All their current trash service has to be cut off by that date.
No, there's no
It's
effective
got an
dates on the
emergency
ordinance.
in the
We're talking about the proof in the ordinance.
Yeah, there was an effective date.
In the ordinance?
On the last
I
page,
thought
I
we,
just looked at it.
Oh, well, we need to get that fixed.
where there was.
It says, section 18 effect, this ordinance shall take effect on July 1st, 2022.
Okay, I missed that.
This is gonna take 3
And
readings.
that's an emergency clause.
It says the ordinance shall take effect.
Ordinance doesn't have an emergency.
And when George was here the last time, we decided that, at that time, that there was ample time between then and July 1st to execute the transition and for them to be ready.
I doubt that.
Well,
I mean,
2 weeks
given
has
all
gone by
that we
since
have to
then.
do still to negotiate the contract, to schedule meetings, and to go through a implementation plan,
Mhm.
you've got to map it all out before you can figure out a date.
So what date do we want to put in?
I don't have a clue until we put some dates to an implementation plan. But I think you have to do that before you can come up out of the blue with a date. mean, you really have to look at what goes into the implementation.
I also thought that this ordinance, since it had penalties in it, you said we could not use the emergency clause.
Now, apparently Justin, I don't know where I read that, but Justin doesn't seem to think that, I mean, Justin wrote the ordinance, so.
Well,
There's really not an emergency.
I would say let him do his negotiations and edits and bring it back and see where we stand. Make a determination how quickly we can implement it.
Yeah, actually, I don't see that as being the thing that would take the longest amount of time.
I put that implementation date line in there because without that line in there, the implementation date is the day we pass the ordinance,
Right.
or 30 days later.
You do need
Well,
it.
And so I'm, you know,
I
I guess I don't necessarily want to take another 2 weeks to put together a comprehensive implementation plan in order to be able to pick a date for here. I'd rather pick a date that's, you know, plenty far out, and then we don't have to worry about it. We can always implement it sooner.
July 1st is 3 months. I don't see how it take longer than 3 months to get started.
Well, if you look at, I mean, just look at some of the tasks that I put on that implementation plan. I mean, you can't implement it, I mean, it can't be implemented until you have people signed up by the provider. You have their database in place.
That's what I'm saying. We don't know when they say they can accomplish that.
That's true.
Well, they told us before that July 1st gave them ample time.
You gotta
Remember, they already have
they have
65%
already have
customers
1,000,
here.
almost 1,000 customers over there. So you're only talking about 500 more.
Well, I mean, take some of the last things I put on the implementation plan was you're gonna have to, you know, one, have a customer sign up period deadline. Then you're gonna have to follow up on all the people that didn't sign up. You're gonna have to issue them a warning of some sort, give them some time to sign up again. Then you're gonna have to take another check. Did you get all the water meters accounted for? Of course not, you don't have them all accounted for. So then you're gonna have to issue some kind of citation to them, you know.
But that's, the citation is
But that's
for
after-
failure to.
Yeah, that's
That's
after
after
the
the fact.
deadline. That would be after the deadline. But you've gotta go out there and, you know, warn them once, warn them twice, and then somehow get them in the system.
We need to notify the carriers, the current
Yeah,
haulers,
that's the first.
when they are to discontinue. And that's gonna be the trigger point for everybody to get signed up. More so than anything else, that's gonna be the trigger for people to get signed up, because most people want garbage pickup. So,
And one of the things we're gonna need to advise residents on how to end their service with their current hauler and start service with Carroll County in a manner so that they will have continuous weekly service. That's not easy in itself.
Could you put, like September on or before the date? And then, once we get closer to hone in on a specific date?
Yeah, like one of the first things I had was, we've got to send out a letter to all the residents, and we're gonna have to use that USPS mass mailing to do it, to cover everybody. And, so you're gonna have to allow time to get that published, printed, in the mail, and all that, and delivered. So that's at least 3-4 weeks right there.
Has Carroll County got an extra 500 garbage containers?
they say they're ready, or they can be ready.
everybody signed up by the implementation date, whatever
No,
it is, because you're gonna have people that don't do it.
Yeah, right, just refuse.
And if you want, I mean, they can sign up and get converted over anytime during that period. They don't have to wait till, they don't wait till the deadline.
3 months might be enough, I'm just a little hesitant to put it down in writing if you're not gonna make it.
Well, there isn't, there's too much time has gone, but there isn't 3 months already. I should probably move it out to August 1st, just to allow the same amount of time that would have been available when I drafted this first time. So, but to me, the longer we wait to pass the ordinance, that date is just gonna keep getting pushed out and pushed out and pushed out, so.
I don't mind passing it as soon as possible, but just, let's pick a realistic date, that we know we can make. I wonder, could we change that could we tweak it down the road if we find we're not gonna hit it?
Certainly, we revise the ordinance with another ordinance. That's all you
I
have
guess
to
we
do.
could do that.
Yeah, that's all you have to do.
I know, we just
We
have
have
to
to postpone it.
It's 8-1, if we're not gonna make it, we could change it.
Change it at that point in time? That's okay.
I mean, we don't have, I suppose we don't have to put a date certain in here. We can say that this ordinance will be in effect,
As soon as your contract is.
yeah, the effective date will be determined in the contract or something like that, and then
There you go.
gives us a little more flexibility. But by the time the letter goes out, which is the first thing that has to be done, we need to have a drop dead date. Otherwise, we're wasting our
Well,
money.
you want to put it that first date before you start following up on people, that's when they have to be signed up. Then you start warning them that they didn't sign up.
I'm in favor of leaving July 1, setting the goal and getting it done. You know,
Okay, if we have to.
'cause that's 4 months. All of April, May, June. Okay, you're right.
So I think.
It was 3 months when I did this the first time, now it's,
Change it to August.
Or May and June.
we're running out of, by the time we get the ordinance passed, it'll be less than 3
I
months.
would feel more comfortable with August first.
I'll change it to August 1st.
To August 1st, that will.
Okay.
But, and then if we find we have to bring it out, we can do a new ordinance.
I see no reason why we have to do it.
No, we don't even have a contract.
We've waited 50 years to have something.
It's gonna take that long to get a contract.
What's 1 more month?
Let's do that more damn notice.
Okay, so we're not gonna go over the contract. I'm gonna take what I have so far, because I have a copy of the contract from Carroll County in a Word document form so that I can work with it. And I've added things in here about streamlining bag service and all that kind of stuff. I'll update it one more time.
And can you make those exhibits on the prices a little bit more clear to understand, because all those words that
Like
I
this?
certainly didn't understand. The exhibit, yes.
Don't take this as being negotiated rates. This is just a format that I thought we could publish for people that better explain what the different rates are for.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. The program that Bob just described of seniors with one little bag or so, would they all get that big green can every month?
No, they would have a bag service.
And then the bag would be out on the street and the animals would get to it?
Still gotta be in a container.
It would be a container?
They'd have to have their own little garbage can to put it in.
Okay, thank you.
That's what we do now. We just have the one, we thought it was one bag. Apparently it's 2 bags, but we never use more than 1 bag.
Okay.
And over here in the left, under the containers, this is per week, right? Although the rate is by month.
It's a weekly service.
What is CBU?
What is
something,
what is it?
construction,
Oh, construction dumpster.
construction and demolition.
3 yard CD, is that construction dumpster, is that what you're talking?
Construction demolition. Where did that contract? CD needs to spell out construction demolition.
And Ken, to your comment about you want to see a rate reduction, being on the board of directors of this Carroll County Solid Waste, I don't get your hopes up about a rate reduction.
Well, if I've got a 65 gallon cart, then this shows a reduction.
Well, why not? I mean, that seems only.
Because we just had to approve a rate increase for the starting wage. We had to increase the starting wage for the garbage truck drivers. Over the last year, we've raised it twice already, and it's up to $18 an hour now. They were paying $14 an hour. About 6 months ago, we raised it to $16 an hour because they couldn't hire anybody. Now we raised it to $18 an hour. And the only reason why they think 18 is enough is because Carroll County Solid Waste has a pretty good benefits package. So if you put the two together, they feel they can attract. But to be a garbage truck driver, you have to have a CDL license. Well, if you have a CDL license, you can make, $100,000 a year driving for JB Hunt. So they are having a hell of a time trying to hire and retain people. They lose on average one person every 1 to 2 weeks, and they only have 18 employees. So,
Dan, don't take offense to this, but please go negotiate as the mayor and not as the board member.
I'm not, yes.
Thank you.
Is this?
You just don't expect a rate that's going to, where Carroll County Solid Waste will be operating as a deficit.
No, but George, at the very first meeting they came, said that he saw that we could negotiate lower rates.
Negotiating a lower rate may mean that it doesn't have to go up.
Well,
They're gonna be raising,
they're
gonna raise the rates for the other cities.
One question, Dan, on the normal structure here where it says 1 30-gallon bag, the initial one we had said 2 30-gallon bags, and he talked, George.
Yeah, I changed that. That's why I said, don't take this as a negotiated thing.
Okay.
Look at this as format for being able to communicate rate structures to people.
It's a much better format.
Because the way George had it listed on there, there was a big price discrepancy between the 2-bag rate and the 65-gallon container rate, and yet the volume was almost exactly the same between 2 bags, and so it didn't make sense. But to your point, Jerry, if you guys see this as a conflict of interest, because I'm on the board of Carroll County Solid Waste, I am more than happy to have a council member do the negotiating on the contract. That doesn't hurt my feelings one bit.
Well, no,
I think Jerry wants to do that.
No, I don't want to do it.
He's a trash man.
Huh?
He's a trash man.
I just have the advantage and maybe the disadvantage of hearing both sides of the story. They're having the same problem that every employer in the country seems to be having. You can't hire anybody.
Well, and you can't get anything without it.
You're the one bitching about not getting a rate increase.
No, I know, but I'm holding as close as I can to the fire, burn.
Well, that's all I said.
But we'll have, the only thing that I would like to see is, what are they charging us now, and is that the same place that we're going to go into?
Okay, anything else for the workshop?
Just one thing on this, what's be publishing this out to the public, I think they need to know what CD means, so if you could make
Sure.
that clear.
I was gonna show this to George and say that you're gonna put out a publish a rate structure. Put a little description in there as to what, who it's intended for and what you're getting for that.
Okay, what is,
Would it be worth asking them to bring, when we vote on this, the rates and the contract, of having one of each of these carts? 'Cause I can't tell you what my cart is, and a lot of people that use their own,
You can probably take pictures of them.
well, or that.
or give the dimensions,
Yeah.
outside dimensions?
Well, they're all the same, so.
No,
What
not,
is it?
if
No.
one's 96 and one's 30, that's not the same.
I've got 3 different sized cans in my garage alone,
No, I meant the ones that they furnish.
or the ones that they furnish.
I don't know that anybody out here uses a 95-gallon cart. That may be why you've never seen one.
I don't think I've ever seen, I'm pretty sure that I have a 65-gallon cart.
Unless you have 4 kids, I don't know why you'd need a
I don't,
95-gallon cart.
it's just convenient, okay? And I don't have to carry it up the driveway. My driveway like that.
Dan,
So it's
on this
good.
rate sheet again, there was one other thing over under the monthly rate column, down where the construction stuff is, it says set fee and tip. That's not gonna be understandable.
That's not.
It is to the contractors.
That's what they.
You
What is
paid,
it?
you paid,
I
You pay to have a
don't know.
place, and you haven't paid to haul away.
yeah,
That's
You
what
pay to have
they,
a place, you haven't paid to haul away.
right, you paid
Here's what it
that.
comes in empty, and here's what it goes out full. That's what set and tip means.
Okay.
They tip it, dump it,
Well,
When they
tip
don't
should
dump
be
it.
the haul away fee.
it's when they dump it.
Tipping fee.
Oh, tipping
I thought-
fee.
I thought
See,
they
that
were-
makes no sense to me.
I thought they was giving them a tip for
it
the.
did to me.
I did too. That's the way I read it. That's the way anyone's gonna read it. Well, except the construction person.
That's why they don't pay very much, because the tips are big.
Yeah. Where did I get in that?
All right,
Okay.
anything else?
Did we
All right.
cover the bullets on your list, Dan?
Do what?
Did we cover all the bullets on your list? Subjects you wanted to cover?
Oh,
I think so.
I think so. I reviewed them, I didn't see anything we didn't go over.
That's coming.
We didn't do an enforcement process very much.
We didn't go through enforcement process, and that's going to be,
Contentious.
that's gonna be under code enforcement, so I mean,
We gotta get the
it,
district court thing set up.
the process won't be in the ordinance, but it is good, I think, for everybody to understand, not just us, but the general public, to understand what the process is that you have to go through. Let's say you get somebody that says, well, screw you, I'm not gonna pay for trash pickup. I'm gonna have a burn barrel in my backyard, and I'm gonna burn my trash, It's a long and tedious process to deal with that situation, and, everybody needs to understand what that process is, so that they don't call me and expect me to snap my fingers and have the problem go away. So, at some point, we probably will,
How soon do you think?
maybe have
we
something on the website as to how ordinances are enforced.
How soon do you think we can hire a code enforcement? Just off the top of your head? Month?
Oh yeah, easily a month.
Easily.
I have one application already, and one coming that I know he's gonna fill one out. And I called all the other people that expressed an interest and asked them to download a job application off the website and fill it out and get it back to me. So I'm gonna give it a couple of weeks
Probably
to.
implement an employee handbook.
we're gonna have to think about it. These are gonna be part-time employees, so you don't have to worry about benefits and all that kind of stuff, but once you start having employees, then you have to be careful about the legal ramifications of having employees.
Do we need to, do anything different with our liability insurance once we have employees? We have to notify them, names or anything like that, put them on a list? Okay.
Good question.
Are we ruling out doing it on a contract basis and, not hiring them as employees? Is there an advantage to doing that?
There probably would be some advantages to doing it that way. I think that the building inspector position could more easily be implemented as a contract basis. That's what we're doing now, basically. The code enforcement officer is going to be, it's gonna be part-time, but it's gonna be regular enough hours that, I don't know, that, you know, I'm not a,
I talked to Justin about that specific question.
Yeah.
It is the pros and cons.
yeah. I can see it being tricky because code enforcement, once a citation is issued, the code enforcement officer is gonna have to represent the city in court and things like that, so, I don't know, I think it'd be a little dicey. I think the IRS might get a little bit.
Well, probably they're always gonna want them to be employees.
Yeah,
but
just making sure you're
depends
not
on
trying
their
to skirt
rates.
some kind of employment law by using contract workers instead of real employees.
We could also float that question out to the Muni League and put it on their listserv question, ask it on the listserv and get responses back not only from the municipal league attorneys, but also any cities that have done that and what they've experienced.
Every time somebody does that, my email traffic goes out of kilter for a month until all the people have responded. Because they always respond to all. I don't know if they have an option of doing anything other than that, but the email
Well,
goes
it
out
probably
to.
is good, that gets that response out to everybody, so everybody can express their opinion.
It's good if it's something you're interested in.
Well, if you've asked the question, you wanna hear from the people that have done it, you know, whether they liked it or not.
Well, if we get close to hiring somebody, the city council will have to approve the hire anyway, so we'll have one more chance to vet it, but at this point, the code enforcement officer, I would rather not. I would rather have that person be a
That makes sense.
part-time employee.
Like you said, the building inspector makes better sense to do that on a contract basis.
The building inspector, the workload isn't predictable. It can be very busy 1 month and then nothing for 2 months.
That's an excellent reason.
Yeah. But the code enforcement officer is gonna be busy for a while. All right, anything else? Do I need a motion to adjourn the workshop?
I got one quick question.
We could.
When does the city need a list of the water meters that the management companies are doing?
That'll be during the transition period, so before August 1st, if we pass the ordinance the way it's written right now. So plenty of time.
Like I said or my wife said the last meeting, we are willing to change companies and location of where our dumpster is. So, and we need to know when we need to turn this list into the city. Start our transition over to what y'all want.
I envision that.
But I agree, y'all know where I live at. dumpster is an unsightly thing, but it was a necessary evil at the time. The dumpster was gotten a year before we bought the management company.
Yeah.
Because I was going around cleaning garages out, abandoned houses out, that roaches and all had infested. And I needed a dumpster right then.
Yeah.
So it was safer for me to get a dumpster at my place and drive all the way over to Variable with whatever I had in the back of the truck.
Right.
So we're trying to get in code with everybody else
Yeah.
and jump on board with this. I just need to know when all this needs to be taken care of.
Yeah. And there's still gonna be situations where property cleanup is necessary. And, you know, the ordinance as written, I don't believe excludes that, you know, from anybody that provides that service. Get with Carroll County and say, I have this huge mess to clean up, can you set a dumpster for me? And,
I've got one actually coming up tomorrow.
yeah, so,
This is cleaning the basement and all that out of the
yeah.
hoarder's house that hoarded everything in their basement.
The only thing we don't want is we don't want people loading it on their own trailer and hauling it off and dumping it in the ditch behind their house. So as long as whoever is doing the cleanup calls Carroll County, gets a dumpster set, and, you know, and has the trash hauled off in a legitimate way, that's perfectly fine.
As far as the corral goes, are y'all talking four-sided corrals or three-sided? How much stuff to corral?
It just can't be visible from the frontage roadway, and it has to be accessible by their equipment. So you might get by with two sides.
A good one.
Sets.
Well, there within Lane's problem, you have no Joe driving down the street going behind these businesses and seeing them, oh, here's a place for me to throw a dumpster.
Yeah,
Or throw a trash can. That does your two-sided and three-sided bad.
the corrals that we talked about are for residential areas.
Okay, what about
We haven't talked about commercial corrals.
commercial
but-
apartments?
If you wanna see one, the clubhouse up there has got a nice, you know, wood fence around
I've
there,
seen it.
dumpster, and,
I've seen people that use it. Like I said, they just drive by and see it and know there's a dumpster.
well, whether there's a dumpster there or a corral there, if they're inclined to throw their bag of garbage over the wall, they're gonna do it, and
But if they're
the only
paying,
thing we can do is try to catch them at it.
they're paying for trash service, they're gonna have to be doing that.
At least if we have an ordinance, we can deal with them.
I don't think they would do that if they had trash service.
But we'll work with anybody, you know.
We're working toward getting that set up where that dumpster that at my house is gone and out of here. But until it gets settled, we have to have it. But I don't feel safe even with a tarp over my truck.
Yeah,
Tarps do break freeze, ropes do break, trash will fly out. Here in Holiday Island, it maintains me to the 25, 30 miles an hour. I don't have trash to drive, that's fall out. If I do, I pull over and pick it up. But if I'm on the highway, I'm not pulling over on the highway.
yeah.
I'm not risking my life for a piece of trash.
Well, one thing you can sort of look toward is, we just kind of, just a minute ago, set the effective date,
Oh,
so
yeah,
to speak, as August 1st.
we should be well ahead of that.
And you should have information on what we're doing well before that time.
We can probably be ready by like June 1st, May 1st, personally ourselves, I can speak for the rest of us. That's how fast we're wanting to get it taken care of that way. I can get out from under the microscope.
Okay.
Alright.
All right, motion to adjourn? Somebody, Jerry made a motion,
Second?
Linda seconded it, all in favor?
Hey.
We're adjourned.